People who are diagnosed with antisocial, it's not that they sacrifice the relationship for authenticity. They also don't know how to be authentic. Their withdrawal from relationship is not because they want to be authentic. Their withdrawal from relationship is because they're afraid of relationships. It says that only when compassion is present will people allow themselves to see the truth. So if you want to see the truth, you need to be compassionate with yourself. There's always fear in moving towards authenticity because we've been taught since children to be afraid of our authentic selves. Because if we're our authentic selves, we're going to lose the world. That's the fear.
Imagine walking into a crowded room and feeling absolutely nothing. No excitement, no warmth, just a numb detachment, as if you're watching life through a glass wall. You try to blend in, force a smile, nod at the right moments. But deep down, something feels missing. Something fundamental. You might think they withdraw because they value authenticity over connection. But here's the unsettling truth. They don't even know what authenticity feels like. And that's where everything starts to unravel. Let's hear it from the expert, Dr. Gabor Maté, a renowned physician and trauma specialist who has spent years uncovering the hidden forces shaping our behaviors and relationships.
I wake up early with a sigh. The morning breaks to leave behind the night I need to get me by. Safe and lonely. It's the same old sound for days to come. I close the blinds and carry on.
I don't experience authenticity usually as one of jumping. I usually as discovering day by day through some gradual practice and some self-awareness of how we're not authentic. It's not a question of jumping into anything, not in my view, because we already are authentic. You can't not be authentic. You're just not in touch with it. And we have all these defenses and all these mechanisms with which we keep from being authentic, like being nice all the time. So that it's not a question of jumping in, it's a question of uncovering through patient and compassionate, kind self-observation, the way in which you're not being authentic. So one spiritual teacher says that liberation is not some great thing that you achieve all of a sudden. Liberation happens every time that you realize that you're not your personality. So they were, and why they're afraid of relationships? Because they were very hurt in relationships. And you were very badly hurt, then one way you protect yourself is you just close down and you're not going to open yourself up. And I'll talk about that later actually. But, so the antisocial personality is somebody who is being so hurt that they withdraw. And you'll see this in your shelter sometimes. They won't trust you. They will close down. They will push away from contact. It's not because they want to be authentic. It's because they're terrified of relationships. Because when they were open to a relationship, which is when they were infants, they were badly hurt. Now, so that's one side of your question. The other side of your question is that, yes, sometimes people choose to be authentic, and when they do, they have to give up relationship. Some relationships. For example, what if you're one of these people that is always nice, and is always serving others, and is always available, and never says no. And then something happens. Maybe you get cancer. Maybe you get depressed. Maybe you just had some therapy and you realize that you're not being authentic. Then you choose to be authentic. Now, choosing to be authentic means that when you feel no, you're going to say no. But all of a sudden, all these people who like you because you're always saying yes don't like you anymore. Well, then you're sacrificing the relationship for the authenticity. Except, what you're going to find is when you become authentic, you're going to attract other authentic people to you. And the people in your life who are willing to handle authenticity will not reject you, they will celebrate you. They'll say, hey buddy, it's about time, I'm so glad to see you, assert yourself. I was worried about you. And the people who can't handle that, they will withdraw from you. So in authenticity, there's always the risk of loss of some relationships. And of course, this is why sometimes people stay in relationship with the wrong people, because they're more attached to the relationship than they are to their authenticity. So they suppress themselves for the sake of the relationship. And if they're going to be authentic and the other person can handle it, they'll lose the relationship. The difference is, and here's the huge difference, and this is why your question is so important. The big difference is that when you're a child, you have no choice in the matter, because you're absolutely dependent on the relationship. You're not free to choose anything else. So when it comes to the conflict between authenticity here and attachment there, you have to go for the attachment. You're helpless in the matter. As an adult, you're no longer helpless. When we think that we're helpless, when we think that we're dependent, I need you so badly, I can't live without you. All these pop songs about, I can't live without you. Well, sure you can. The only person that can't live without somebody else is a baby. But the trouble is, it's hard for us to grow up. It's very hard for us not to be babies. This is where it's a choice that we make as to do we choose to grow up or do we choose to stay babies. And yeah, sometimes when we choose to grow up, then the people that can't handle it, they will leave us, for sure. Some people, when they realize that they haven't been themselves, then they develop some idealized view of what they would look like if they were themselves, and they get attached to some idealized view of it. So now they get attached to some false image. This is where people get into cults. They don't like who they've been, and all of a sudden they want to construct a totally different being. And instead of exploring who they really are and finding out what's really going on, then they identify with something external, like a cult leader or anything. And then, instead of being authentic, they just choose a different, more acceptable way of being inauthentic. That's the biggest pitfall, I think. And so that's why anything can become either something positive or something negative in your life. I mean, you can, for example, follow a spiritual path as a way of becoming authentic, but you can also follow a spiritual path as a way of staying inauthentic by identifying with some idealized image rather than with your true self. There's always fear in moving towards authenticity because we've been taught since children to be afraid of our authentic selves, because if we're our authentic selves, we're going to lose the world. That's the fear. There's always going to be fear there, and I can't give you a general answer except to say that that fear has to be confronted, has to be recognized, understood, and accepted. It's a process. This book, When the Body Says No, that I've been quoting you from, it's dedicated to my mother, but also to a great Canadian-Hungarian doctor. His name was Hans Selye, and he's the one that did the work on stress. And Selye said, along the lines of what you said, he said that the biggest stresses on human beings are emotional ones, and the biggest stress of all is trying to be who you're not. So that's what you found out. And Selye said, along the lines of what you said, he said that the biggest stresses on human beings are emotional ones, and the biggest stress of all is trying to be who you're not. So that's what you found out. You're still new at it. You're still learning. So instead of being frustrated with yourself about, like when you say, why am I still like that? Now there's two ways to ask that question. If you say, why am I still like that? If I said to you, why are you like that? Is that a question or a statement? It's a statement. And what is the statement saying? What's that? You're not good enough. So when you ask it like that, you're accusing yourself. You're not actually asking a question. You're making an accusation against yourself that you're not good enough. Right? Now, there's another way to ask the same question. I could ask you, gee, I'm curious. Why do you do that? Why are you like that? Well, what do you suppose, is behind that? Now, is that a question or a statement? That's a question. Which one do you think you're more likely to answer? If I say to you, why are you like that? Why are you still doing this? But if I said to you, Kay, hey Kay, here's it is. Here's your 30, and you're an intelligent woman, and you've learned all these things, but I'm noticing that despite what you've learned, you're still doing some of the same things that you used to do before. Now, why do you suppose that is? Now, that's a question. Which one do you think you might more open up to? The first way of putting it or the second way? So that's the first thing is, you've got to ask yourself the right way. In other words, you have to ask it with compassion. Remember I said compassion for yourself. Compassionate curiosity. To be really, when you say, why am I like that? That's not a question. That's a statement. I already know. I'm like that because I'm not good enough. But if you ask it compassionately with curiosity, then you might be able to come up with the answer. So I suggest that every time that question comes up for you, ask it with that compassionate curiosity, rather than as a self-accusation. Then the answer will come to you. Because otherwise, because if I attack you, what are you going to do? You're going to defend yourself. But if I treat you with compassion, you're going to open up. There's a spiritual teacher who says, I've been quoting him today, he says that only when compassion is present will people allow themselves to see the truth. So if you want to see the truth, you need to be compassionate with yourself. So that's the first point, okay? The second point is, this is a new territory for you. This stuff you still have to learn. Now the Buddha, who's one of the great teachers of all time, of course, he said, he had this image of two strong men pulling a third one, a weaker one, towards a precipice, and they're going to throw him off into the abyss. And this poor, weaker guy digs his heels into the ground, he tries to resist, but they're stronger than he is. And the Buddha said that those two strong men are what he called our habit energies. The things that we've been habituated into doing all our lives. They're just ingrained in our brains, like fixed patterns. And the weaker guy, he says, is our untrained mind. So if we want to overcome our habit energies, now for you, to suppress yourself in the presence of some people is just a habit that you've learned very early in life, that before you had any choice in the matter. It's ingrained in your brain. There's brain circuits who are telling you that if I'm authentic, that's not good. Those are your habit energies. So that's an automatic behavior for you. And that automatic behavior is there despite what you know intellectually, despite what you've learned. So those habit energies in certain situations will get triggered. Unless you train yourself very patiently. I mean, you wouldn't expect to go into a gym and press 150 pounds on the first day. You're going to press maybe 25 pounds. So right now, you're pressing maybe 75 pounds. You want to press 150 pounds, you have to train yourself some more. Overcome those habit energies. That's all. That's all.
You ever notice how hard it is to be patient with yourself? Like, you can understand all this, know that change takes time, that habits are deep, that self-compassion is key. But when it's you in the moment, slipping back into old patterns, suddenly all that wisdom goes out the window. Instead, you're just frustrated. Why am I still like this? And maybe that's the real struggle. Not just changing the habit, but resisting the urge to punish yourself for the habit. Because here's the thing, growth isn't about flipping a switch. It's about endurance. The ability to sit with yourself in the moments when you least want to. When you feel like you should be past this already. When the old reflex kicks in, and you watch yourself do the thing you swore you wouldn't do anymore. That's when it's hardest. And that's when it matters most. Because in those moments, you have a choice. Do you react with the same old self-judgment, reinforcing the very habit you're trying to break? Or do you take a breath and say, okay, that happened, what now? The real work isn't just in stopping the habit. It's in how you treat yourself while you're still in the process of unlearning it. Because if you make every misstep a reason to be harsh with yourself, you're just strengthening the old pattern. More fear, more shame, more shutting down. But if you can meet yourself with patience, even when you slip, that's how you actually shift something. Not overnight. Not in some dramatic breakthrough. but in the quiet, steady practice of not turning against yourself. That's the thing no one really talks about. The part where change is boring and slow and full of moments where you feel like you're going backward. But that's where it happens. In the moments when it would be easier to be cruel to yourself, but you aren't.
As a family physician, you get to see people before they get sick. So you know what their personalities are like for years before they get sick. And also you get to see them in the context of their families, including their multi-generational family of origin. By the way, just as an interesting exercise, let me just ask you right now, I'm not going to ask you any personal details, but how many of you in the last 5 years have been to a respirologist, a gastroenterologist, a cardiologist, a neurologist, a gastroenterologist, a dermatologist, maybe I said rheumatologist, any kind of an ologist? Just put your hand up. Okay, great. All right. Now, put your hand up again if they asked you about childhood trauma. One person. That's great. If they asked you about stresses in your relationship with your spouse, a couple of hands. About job stress. Yeah, so we have maybe like a 5 to 10%, and that's really good if they ask you about it. And I wonder how long they took the discussion, but it doesn't even occur to them. But I'm telling you, all of you who went to these specialists were there because of childhood trauma. Virtually all of you. Now, there are diseases that you can't put into that category. There are genetic diseases, like there's one that runs in my family, muscular dystrophy. If you have the gene, you'll have the disease. It's nothing to do with life or stress. It's just, although that can affect the course of it, but whether you get it or not.
So here's the real takeaway. Growth isn't about being perfect. It's about staying with yourself, even when it's messy, even when you slip, even when the old habits pull at you like gravity. Because every time you meet yourself with patience instead of punishment, you're rewriting the story. You're proving to yourself that change isn't about force, it's about consistency, about kindness, about refusing to give up on yourself. And that's real strength. So keep going. Keep asking the right way. Keep training that mind like you'd train a muscle, bit by bit, rep by rep, because one day, without even realizing it, you'll look back and see just how far you've come. If this spoke to you, if you're on this journey of self-discovery and growth, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Inside Serene for more insights like this. Let's keep learning, keep evolving, and most importantly, keep showing up for ourselves. See you next time.
Stay away. What comes around can stay